Good evening, members of council, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the town of Pelham Committee of the Whole to order for Monday, December 5th. It has been moved by Councillor Durley that the agenda for the December 5th, 2016 regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? Councillor Papp?
Very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if it's appropriate, but under new business, I was reading through this letter from the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce regarding the municipal transit. Are we going to deal with this? Can we? I don't know if we can deal with it tonight. Can we deal with it? I'm very fascinated by.
I said to the clerk today that council hasn't seen that report,
No.
and that perhaps we should include it on our P&P agenda next meeting.
That's fine. Then I'll defer. That's fine.
Okay,
I
so we'll
do
make sure
think
that
we
we
need
do
to
that.
talk
Yeah,
about this.
absolutely. There is an open house. They're doing a couple of open houses. They are making presentations to.
Yes.
This is regarding intermunicipal transit, and councillors may have received a letter from the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. Their proposal was to go to the larger councils that have the larger transits, so the St. Catharines, Welland, and
Right.
Niagara Falls first, and then go to the other area municipalities. And I did speak to Ms. Van Ravensway about it as well. But I think it's important for council to take a look at the report and to perhaps direct staff to give us some information that we may want to consider as we then listen to when they come to council. So I had suggested that perhaps that come
That's
at our
fine.
next meeting under P&P. So, but thank you for raising it. I'm glad you did.
Because it has major, as you know, it has major implications, what we do here locally.
Yeah.
Whatever, and how we're gonna work that through.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna bring it to PMP next meeting, I'll be looking forward to that.
So, Madam
Okay, thank
Clerk,
you.
If you can just mark that down that we do that. I did speak to the clerk about that.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Any other changes to the agenda? So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is any conflicts of interest that any members of council may have. Do any members of council have any conflicts of anything on our agenda? Can that be so noted that there are no conflicts? It's been moved by Councillor Papp that Committee of the Whole receive the November 2016 Community Planning and Development Report for information. Questions or comments to the director? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure it's particularly important, but I do note that the major building projects over 250,000 included the community center Wellspring Way at 40 million. I mean, we worked so hard to keep that at 37 million. That really kind of hit me right between the eyes.
Page 1 at the bottom, Madam Director, can you explain to the councillor why it's at that value?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yeah, 40 million is what was estimated, I think, on the building permit application form is the estimated cost of construction, so that's where that information comes from. We know that's not what has been approved by council.
Well, it's already more valuable than we thought, right?
That's right. I guess that's what it is. We have an equity position in it already.
Yes, exactly.
So now you can flip it.
I just sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just
Councillor
felt-
Papp wants to sell it already, so there you go.
$2.5 million.
It's breaking ground.
So I don't to Mr. Mayor to be in the position of explaining that, no, we've changed our mind. It's really going to cost us more than we advertised. That was my only concern. But
Madam Director, can you just fill us in on, sometimes we get things there at the bottom of what major projects, how do they make those determinations, or simply what's put on the permit, is that correct?
Yes, those are just what is put on the form, and of course, these major projects are things that are exceeding $250,000 of construction value, so those are how they're just broken out.
Okay, thank you.
fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And we're included in that, why can't we be excluded? I mean, that's why you get $44.8 million value of construction. Will it not skew our results when we do comparables? And so why do we have to be included in that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question there, Mr. Mayor, so.
A few lines above, it says estimated total value of construction. And now when we compare year after year, that bump up for the municipality is going to be in that number. Why do we have to be in the number? Why can't we be, I'll say in quotes, exempted from that number?
We can take ourselves out of that number just for the purposes of our reporting, for sure. Because it is going to
sense.
be an anomaly this year because of the value of construction is very high this year compared to other years, not only because of the community center, but because of some of the other large, commercial projects that were approved and under construction this year.
Might make some sense, maybe you can consider whether that should be included or not on a go-forward basis. It might skew the results, but we do have to pay the building permit to the building department. That's the other point I was trying to get across.
Yes, we do, from an accounting perspective, because the building department is self-funded through the revenues that it takes in through building permit application fees, so therefore they have to be accounted for.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on that particular item? Other questions on other items in the director's report? Certainly a very busy building time as well. Anyone, are we ready to go? Just a question about the, it says East Fenwick. Terms of reference to council for approval. One more meeting, I guess, Madam Director, is that coming?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're working on them. We're going to try to get them to you for the 19th. I do need to get sign off from the region of that, so they may not make it here on the 19th. If they don't, then it'll be first meeting in January.
Okay, it will, yeah, we don't have a planning meeting until, I don't know if you need planning committees right off on it, but,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Anything further? Going to call the question, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Durley that Committee of the Whole receive the November 2016 Corporate Services Report for information. There's many additions to that report. Questions or comments? Councillor Papp, sorry.
Very, very quickly, under pre-authorized monthly payments, usually I don't pay much attention to this, but it says 1,625 for the year dated now and 263. What's happening? Is that just an anomaly, or?
Madam Treasurer.
Sorry, just trying to find it in the report.
Yeah, it says, Madam Treasurer, November 2016, we have 263 pre-authorized monthly payments. Last year, we had 1,625, so is that just,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is just the amount of payments that are going out through
Okay.
the PAP system
Right.
in November. So it's just a comparative. There could have been an anomaly of certain payments being withheld or done at a certain time last year compared to this year. It's just the processing piece.
just the process, it's just just on how it's recorded, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. If there's something odd, you'll tell us, right, on that one? Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Papp?
Again, just quickly underwater, I noticed notification last year, you had 0 leaks, now you got 122. It wasn't me, was it?
Fix that toilet,
I fixed that toilet. So what's going on? It's just that people are more cognizant and
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we had a lot more leaks denoted in the bathroom industry. So the toilets are leaking on a regular basis, which is the majority of the time the issue with respect to the homeowners. So they get a leak detection report right after the billing is done. Then they will call into our water clerk. She will send them through the blue dye test and have them solve their own issues. We have had some water hose issues as well, especially this summer with the large water, and it leaves a small drip if they don't turn it off properly. So it shows up on our report as a continuous leak, even though it's not a big one. It still shows up as something that's happening on a continual basis. So they also get a leak report. So, I mean, these are all just customer service oriented things that we provide to the residents and let them know that there's something wrong in their home, and that to avoid further costs with respect to that leak, to have someone come in and look at that.
Thank you.
good.
Thank you. Others? Councillor Kersey?
Are we able to ask questions about any portion of the
Yeah, there's a
reports?
number
There's
of,
a whole contingent.
yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about the tender report, and I raise it only because I have an exuberant group of constituents on one particular street that have been following the project on Highland Avenue. My recollection is that the budget on Highland was $286,000, and now I see the contract was awarded at $310,000. Did I miss something? Plus engineering, so I'm just wondering, did I miss something? I just wanted to get up to speed so I can answer any questions that might come forward.
Ms. Clemencio.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, the budget number you have in mind might be just the roads portion. There was also a water portion and a sanitary portion, all for that whole construction cost.
Perfect, thank you. So that's all inclusive in this one tender? It's
Yes, it is. They're nodding their heads. Yes, it is.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we're under budget on that project.
wonderful, thank you very much.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome, good news.
Others? Counselor Pat? On the tender one?
Yeah, on the tenders,
ahead.
can I ask? All right, and it's just a matter of clarification, because I was approached by one of the bidders on this, and under bid number PW 49 Tree Planting Program, there seems to have been a little bit of a switch change here, because the lowest tender was 37,984, and it ends up going to Barcon, and I'm just, could someone explain to me what happened here? I heard various,
Sorry, we're all trying to
Okay,
find
so-
that. Ms.
it's
Clemencio?
PW 49, the tree planting program.
Here, go ahead.
It was awarded to the lowest bidder, and the provisional items were also removed to keep it under budget. So both of those things, the lowest bidder, I apologize, Niagara Compost Soil Farm came in as the lowest bidder.
Right, that's what I'm trying to,
Contacted that, I apologize, now I'm remembering, we contacted that company with some reference, to seek out some reference information. Based on their references that we had back, interviews with the references that they had listed, we weren't satisfied they could give us the municipal support that we needed, essentially based from a reference from another nearby municipality, with some strong opinions on the success of the job. So based on that, we went to the next lowest bidder, and we also removed the provisional items.
Barcon.
Correct. Yes.
And their references checked out?
Mr. Mayor, they did, yes. Yep.
Counselor Pat?
Well, I had other, how can I say, there's always another side to the story, and I'll talk to staff about it. Just, in the future, this particular individual felt that they were not given a chance to explain their reference. In fact, they ended up getting a contract with a local municipality for 3 years and didn't understand what had happened. So maybe at some later point you can fill me in, because it's,
I believe there's an option under the procurement process where
If there's an
a
option so
bidder
I can explain
meet
it?
with staff to review it. Madam
you
Treasurer?
can explain it.
And certainly, I just want to make sure, and this has happened a few times,
Right,
when companies have come back and said, we want a chance to explain, we want a chance to
Right.
give our side.
right,
The fact is, they've given us a reference with
Right.
the project and a name of the municipality
Right.
and a contact.
right.
And if we, in a phone call from that particular person that they've named, get
A negative.
negative feedback and
That's what I
not
wanna know.
neutral, this was strongly negative about how the project proceeded, how it went over budget, how it went over time, how they had to chase them, from a municipality similar in size, and the scope of the reference was the same. That's why we had to move on.
As long as I don't want to get into the details, that there is an option there that if the reference comes back and if I'm a bidder and I put that name down, I better be pretty confident it's going to be a good reference, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes,
Would
we
hate-
aren't obligated to go back and say, okay, give us your side
No,
of
no,
the story.
that's all I'm trying to figure out.
Seems to be some discrepancy.
Okay, but they can also do a
But
postmortem or a,
Mr. Mayor, there is a clause under the procurement policy that they can request a debriefing, and that would be with the purchasing
Okay.
department and the director to go through the process. That did not happen in this case.
okay, but it's still an option for them?
It is still an option.
Okay,
Okay, thank you,
perhaps
Madam
Councillor-
Treasurer, Madam Director, that's all I need to know. Thank you for that information.
okay.
Thank you.
Others to the tender report? I have a couple, really sort of a general question, not a specific one, but there's a few tenders that are just appear, at least on the report, as single bids. And so how do we authenticate that single bid? I mean, this was a worry I remember, again, for those of us a little long in the tooth, to think about a facility's roof, and there was a one bid on it, et cetera. How do we authenticate if there's two or three of them, a single bid? How do we know that they're in the right, I'll say in quotes, ballpark? Madam Treasurer?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, through the procurement policy, we are obligated to seek out at least 3 quotations or 3 bids on a project. So through the process of the year procurement, what we do is make sure that there's been 3 people invited in. We look to say if they've been a plan taker, which means they've taken the document, they're reviewing the document, and they're going to either submit a proposal. At the 17th hour, as I call it, our purchasing coordinator will reach out to those individuals that have been plan takers to ask if they are going to submit a bid process, and then they decide whether they're going to do that or not. We then, if only one bid comes in, we go through the process. Are they successful in the field that they're being requested for a bid? We, at that point, cannot discount them as the successful bidder if they meet all the criteria and they're coming within a budgeted amount. So if they're way off target, obviously, we're going to go back. We have the option under the procurement policy as well to go back out to tender, which we have done on many projects several times. So we would have that option. If we feel that option is just a process that is going to result in the same result, then we do not go through that, because we are obligated to make sure that we're meeting our mandate too within the town. So we do have all sorts of measures in place under the procurement policy to make sure that that bid is the right bid for the town, and also the most responsible bid.
Thank you. I guess the worry in that particular case that comes to mind was it was a specific product, and there was only 2 or 3 people and whatever. So, but I appreciate you explaining how.
In that case as
follow
well,
that.
we've had that issue where it's based on, can it be a sole sourced item, or is it a special circumstance? So sometimes you have these specific items that only in this area, there's only limited number of resources available. But we do research out other companies that can provide that similar product, and sometimes they come back with, it's just not feasible for us to supply that to you. So we have to make that decision.
Okay. Thank you very much for the explanation. Now, other parts of the report, Councillor Kersey, you want to ask about another one of the?
Yeah, actually, I had one, but this conversation that was taking place raised an
Go
interesting
ahead.
thought in my mind. I just wondered, when we have plan takers, we put out a project for tender, and we have plan takers, and those plan takers don't submit a bid, and you said at the 17th hour you go back to them. I wondered, do you sort of do an interview to find out, why didn't you partake in the bid? Was it that the bid wasn't clear? What was the reason for not entering the bid? So to help us improve our bid documents.
You, Mr. Mayor, exactly, especially in the cases where we're only getting one bid. We will go back to the plan takers to understand why they did not submit a bid. And like to the point that I made, the one instance that I'm aware of is that they could not feasibly reply to our response. They were too busy as an organization and could not provide us the product that we needed at the time, or the services that we needed. So we do absolutely, especially if there's only one bid, and in working with the Director of Public Works or other departments, if we know there's only one bid coming in, then a decision has to be made. Are we going back out to tender? And do we need to reach our tentacles a little bit further for the bid process? So we are on top of it every single time it happens, except that there are some instances where only one supplier, and I could reference something from Summerfest, where only one supplier could accommodate us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there another item you wanted to?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I
about?
wanted to ask a question, just to bring clarity to the debenture for the airport. So,
We're not there yet.
oh, that's a separate item?
It is, yeah.
Sorry, I thought that was in part of corporate services.
It is, but not
You wanna
in
deal
the
with
Cal
it separately?
report, yeah.
Okay.
We have a separate
Yep.
resolution.
Okay.
Okay? There were other documents in the corporate services report, which I think we've dealt with.
was.
So I'm going to call the question. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Junkin, that Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that the water management bylaw updates be approved. Questions, comments? Thanks for highlighting those changes. The one that I had a question with, Madam Treasurer, I'm trying to get my computer to boot here. The disconnection, it appears that we're putting together somebody that's going on vacation and another type of disconnection. So do we have people that go on vacation that ask us to disconnect their water so they don't pay the monthly fee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct. We have snowbirds, as they're called, and they leave in October, November, and they don't come back till April. So they ask us to disconnect to ensure that, even though they know that there won't be consumption in their house, there's a possibility of a leak that could occur while they're away. So they ask for a disconnect so that that leak could not happen in their home, but we still charge them that fixed amount. So this bylaw has to reference that. It wasn't clear in the past, and that's why the change in here now, so that the fixed charges that are associated with the water main that goes to their home are still accountable for by them, and they understand that and are fine with it. We've just had a couple instances where some have complained about that process, but they.
So this will mean that if that happens, they still have to pay those
They've always had
base
to pay the
fees.
fixed fees. It's just that
clarifying it.
it was written here, but it was a little bit more vague, so we've just cleaned that language up.
Okay. But the second point is, I mean, it makes sense in that case, because they're gonna come back, they're gonna, whatever it is. But when I think about, there was a house on Welland Road where they demolished the house, and it took them some time to put a house back in that place, et cetera. It may have been a year, may have been a year and a half, so longer than a couple of months. My read of this change is we would still continue to charge that property for the hookup, but in that case, we didn't. We disconnected, and then they paid the reconnection fee.
That's correct. At the point in time, as soon as a demolition happens, a host demolition permit is brought forward, and they ask for us to disconnect, they pay the disconnect fee. So what they also pay is that fixed cost fee. Their intent is to rebuild a house on that property, so we must maintain that water main in front of their property, and that's what the intent of this bylaw is for. So it is a practice that's been in place since long before I started at the town. It just has not been very clear in the bylaw, and we wanted to make sure that that was clear to all the residents, that we have not had many complaints about that at all. They understand that we must maintain that water main along the front of their home until they rebuild a house. Some can rebuild a house within 4 months on the property. Some take their time and do it within 2 years. So we ask them at the point in time that they're demolishing, is your intent to rebuild this house within 2 years? And if they say yes, then we still charge that fee, and we've had no issue with it. We just wanted to make sure that the housekeeping of the bylaw was cleaned up so that we could collect that and refer back to the bylaw for it.
So, sorry, is that the 2-year portion in here? I didn't necessarily see a clause to 2 years, or what is the 2-year piece?
It is not, it's not directly stated in the bylaw about the 2-year window. It's just that's the practice of all the municipalities around, the Niagara region, that if they're going to be rebuilding, we use a window of 2 years because that's typically the legal term for recovering fees, is a 2-year window. So we ask them to provide us with documentation on what the intent is to rebuild. Most of the time when they're doing a demolition permit, they already have a permit for a rebuild, so we don't even have that conversation with them. So only on the rare occasion do we have to go back to them and say, what is your intent on rebuilding this home? And then they'll indicate to us. There is one up on Highway 20, for instance. It was a demolished house that occurred. That the house was not going to be rebuilt. It was going to become part of a land issue. So to help improve the size of the land on the street. So that was not something that we would put according to this bylaw. That becomes then exempt from this bylaw, because we are not maintaining the line in front of that home anymore. We're maintaining the line through the whole property, which then disperses it to the rest of the community. So at some point, everybody's going to have to pay for it. And we're just saying that when you're going to rebuild a home and you want us to have your line ready for the line connection to your house, we need to make sure that that's maintained in front of your house. So you need to pay your fair share. Otherwise, we're going to have to give it out to the rest of the community to pay, because the fixed costs are the fixed costs and they have to be shared.
Okay, thank you. No one else go deep into this, or they're satisfied with the answers? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the capital request of $45,000 from the Niagara Centre Dorothy Rungeling Airport be funded by the Roads Reserve be approved. Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm satisfied with the intellectual argument that took place in the report here justifying the expenditure. I just wanted to understand that that $45,000 is our portion of the larger picture of, what was it, 250,000 or something in that neighborhood. So that would exempt us from approval processes or anything of that nature. We don't have to sign off on that debenture. We're clear if we put that money in.
Madam Treasurer?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is our portion of the total $250,000 that would be debentured. There's been lots of conversations back with the other area municipalities, as well as Jennifer Yarno from the region, who is the expert in the debenture process through Infrastructure Ontario. When we look down at the hard truth of what the costs were going to be for the municipality over the next 30 years of a debenture, and the financing fees and the work involved, it was so much more costly to go that route than just to pay it out from our reserves. So we have removed ourselves from the debenture process through this report, and I'm understanding that some of the other municipalities might end up doing the same as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That clarifies. Maybe Councillor Ribbiak would like to comment on that, Mr. Mayor.
I was going to ask him.
Oh,
Thanks.
sorry, I beat you to the punch.
Councillor Ribbiak. You wanna
Thank you, Mr.
comment?
Mayor, and through you to the councillor. One of the things that I've been careful about in this discussion is ensuring that this municipality, equal to the others, is repaid for that money. Mind you, our budget is made up of grants, in part from grants from our municipalities, and it might be just a flow through. But if other municipalities go the debenture route, obviously the money doesn't come out of their coffers, it comes out of Infrastructure Ontario, and we are faced with the obligation of having to repay it. If the money comes from Pelham's coffers, it needs equally to be repaid. And so we need to make sure that that mechanism exists now and in the future, if at some point control of the airport changes hands.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That raises some very interesting discussion then. So I'm assuming that we're advancing this $45,000 with strings attached, such as terms of repayment that would parallel any debenture that might be in place. I assume, are we charging interest for the $45,000 as well, since we have some lost opportunity costs there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's a situation that's kind of bizarre, because they have to show on their books that they owe the town of Pelham some funds. However, they actually asked for that in a grant from us. So it's almost like a wash. So what we would do is, if this is approved and we agree to pay this out of our reserves, our message to them would be that we cannot be charged then for the rest of the debenture, interest and principal, would only be determined between the 3 area municipalities that did not decide to go through a reserve transfer. So we are giving them cash, we are not going to debt. So the other ones, if they go to debt, there's a debt obligation now on their books, but that debt obligation does not belong to the town of Pelham. So we have discussed this, I discussed this with our auditors. They would have to put a note on their statements that they in fact owe the town of Pelham $45,000 reimbursement for the reserve transfer for the funds used for the capital projects, and they would list the projects. So we have a mechanism to make sure that that is accounted for properly. We just want to make sure that on their operating statement, when it says that they have to pay something back, and we're doing this more for the whole concept that there's an overarching study being done right now as if the region's going to take it over. Right. So at the end of the day, they need to know that they if they take it over and they take over the debt, that there's an obligation to the town of Pelham as well. So we will make sure that that's written into the scope when we transfer this over, if this account, report is approved by council tonight. But also that any debt instrument that's taken by Infrastructure Ontario is not put on their operating statements and divided equally between the 4 municipalities, but that debt obligation can only be divided by the 3.
Make sense?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, thank you. Others, Councillor Pap?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Treasurer, so I'll try and simplify it. It's a promissory note. You're gonna pay us back 45 grand. We're not gonna pay any interest or any other charges. The other 3, if they decide to borrow the money, it's not on our hands, right? And we'll have terms and conditions that says that up front, right? Is that as plain and simple as, right?
Mr. Mayor, absolutely. That is what we're going to make sure that if we're doing it this way, we are trying to save some financing charges and interest and principal, interest along the way. And then the other municipalities they have been communicated with as well tonight, that I was bringing this report forward that's saying it's coming out of the reserve. So now it seems like there might be some conversation about what they're doing as well. So we just looked at the financing charges. I explained it's way too costly for us to do it that way.
Okay.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you. I'm
Thank you.
satisfied.
Any others? Why roads reserve? Because it's a runway? I don't like,
The airport, so I'm an accountant and everything goes through the financial information return that's governed by the Ontario province, the province of Ontario. And transportation, airport, public transit, all that stuff goes under roads. So it is
so,
part
but
of.
this isn't for, Councillor Ribbiak, this is for a hangar as well as a runway, is that correct?
That's right, Mr. Mayor. You'll recall that the 2 capital projects are the repair of a hangar roof and the installation of an updated, upgraded septic system.
Septic system.
Yes.
It would still classify under FIR as a transportation project, because it is part of an airport.
Okay, I guess when I think of the challenge that we're having with the capital budget on a go-forward basis, it's within, a lot of it's within the road reserve. So we can't take it out of working funds, we can't do something else.
You can take it out of working funds if you'd like to, but I mean, the law.
But you're not recommending that.
I'm not recommending that. The working funds reserve is really for those issues that are critical and are last minute emergencies, and we need to take care of them. We know that this is happening. It's 45,000. It can come out of the roads reserve for this year, and we would still have a positive balance. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Just quickly, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Ribbiak, are the other 3 going the route of debenture? Is that what you're sensing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, one municipality, the one that is smaller than ours, is actively considering following our suit. To the best of my knowledge, the other 2 municipalities, the larger ones, their committees have recommended to council that they go the debenture route. But my understanding is that if they have a conversion on the road to, they can change anytime.
The River Road?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved, but, okay, so this one we have a bit of a problem with, and perhaps we should have adopted the agenda. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was an issue with the fire CAL report, so the fire chief is not available this evening, but he will bring this report to the PNP meeting on the 19th.
Thank you. So in terms of this motion, do we just postpone it to the next meeting?
Yeah, we'll just postpone it to the next meeting, yeah.
So Councillor Kersey, you've moved that we receive the Fire and Bylaw Services report for information, and then you'll also move that we postpone it to our PNP meeting.
So just replace the motion with a postponement because you don't have anything to receive.
Got it. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. To postpone. Yes, Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to let council know, the chief is actually on a fire call as we speak, so that's why he's not here tonight. Otherwise, he would have been able to distribute it in person.
Thank you. I knew that at least two halls were responding, maybe more. So. A rural fire. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin that Committee of the Whole received the November 2016 Human Resources Report for information. Questions or comments? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question I have through you to our director is with reference to the organizational design review and some of the changes that have been announced so far and what's planned. And I'm just wondering when that organizational design review was approved by this council and when the budget attached to that was approved by the council. Because certainly some of these changes must have some budgetary implications, even though I haven't seen any reports with reference to that. So I just like to get some clarity. You know, I don't know what I've been smoking, but I just like to get it understood by myself.
Thank you. I believe it was approved by council. Madam Director, please.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. The changes I believe you're referring to are more changes regarding the compensation strategy, and there has been no impact to budget on any of those changes. The changes that will come regarding the organizational design review will be part of the staffing reports that come through for 2017, so you will see those in the coming weeks.
So we haven't approved it.
So can you clarify just the difference between the two? The compensation strategy, which has come to council and council approved.
That's correct. Yeah, so there's been no increase to budget regarding
Okay.
any of those changes. And then the organizational design, as we prepare for the community center, we are going through a transition. We are preparing for it, and with that is going to come some costs. And those staffing reports, those requests will come to you in the coming weeks.
Mr. CEO?
Thank you. I think that the question that's being asked, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor, is relation to the staff announcement that went out a week or so ago with indicating
was part of it,
promotions. Is that what the question is? Just to address that specifically, council did receive that indication. The reason for that is not that there was suddenly a massive promotions within the organization. Those were largely title changes to existing positions. So for example, if you look at the water sewer, you look at somebody like the lead hand, they were getting a premium to be able to be on call and to take on supervisory. So what we did in the compensation reviews, we took the on-call, or we took the premium and rolled it into the wages and changed the title. So it was all approved within the package that council gave us. And not to, I think a lot of it was housekeeping changes in title that reflected the actual work that was being done after the compensation review was being was concluded. So there was no new money, there was no promotions out of scope, there was no everything was approved by council and was done within the salary package that council gave us. And I hope that provides some clarity.
Thank you. Councillor?
Okay, that's fine. I guess the other part to the question is the organizational design review with reference to the Pelham Community Center and those anticipated changes. Now, there was some preliminary discussion around that, and there was an outline given to us. I don't believe it was ever an approved design by council, nor were there any budgetary implications to that. So, you know, when I read this paragraph, and it may be just verbiage, it almost implies that PCC staffing and the staffing changes that were outlined to us have already been approved and that the budgetary implications have already been implied. And I don't believe that's the case. So I just wanted to get clarity that, in fact, that is the understanding of staff.
Okay, Madam Director?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. And you're absolutely correct. There's been no staffing changes. We have not proceeded. We have not put through an organizational design chart for anybody to approve. This is really, we're starting that initial work that we had mentioned in that in-camera session where we need to start transitioning some work over. While we have time on our side, we need to start getting our ducks in a row, making sure that everybody is comfortable, and we're moving quite slowly. So we have started early intentionally, and we are starting to transition work, but that transition is slow because we have time on our side. And I want to make sure that we don't miss anything, and for that reason, we are going slow and we are starting early. So there's been no extra costs that have been added to staff.
Stay tuned.
Everything's been approved through budgets.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Pap?
So just to pick up on what Councilor Kersey's saying, and not to put words, any organizational design review impacts across the board. It's not just about the PCC. It affects, so what you're going to be bringing to us is you, Mr. CEO, is, let alone the staffing and the cost, here's what the new business model is going to look like. Is that a fair way of saying that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely.
Because
In fact,
that-
that's actually been one of my greatest concerns since we started this, is we seem to only focus on the PCC when we have this larger town to really talk about. And quite honestly, this was one of my concerns, that we are overlooking the larger needs as we develop East Fund Hill, as well as continue with making sure that Fenwick and the rest of the town doesn't fall apart. So there's lots that that needs to go into
Okay.
this. And again, this is, my approach is to go slow and steady and to identify things as we go, so that it doesn't come as a surprise or a shock that we have costs that we're going to incur. And I also want to make sure that we do incur in costs, where we have enough time to review it and make sure that we're not just reacting, that we're incurring costs for the right reasons.
Thank you.
I think I'm very pleased with that, because I think it's not pivoting around one, it's changing the
Absolutely.
culture, the structure of the business itself
That's
to adapt, not only short-term, long-term, along with everything else that's going along. So we're looking forward, you'll bring that to us with costings, the different changes in roles, responsibilities, and all the rest of that. Is that fair?
That is very fair.
Basically, so
It's coming. We're working
time,
on it.
yeah, no, I don't want to, I mean, when, next 3 to 6 months, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry,
Well, I
Mr.
don't-
CIO, did you want to respond?
It's your file.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, in the short term, you're gonna see some, as I said, I talked about for staffing for 2017 to help us with this continued transition. However, for the larger 3-year plan,
Right.
you will see a larger, more comprehensive
Right.
strategy in place and the costs associated with that. But right now, we're taking things slowly, and we're gonna incur some costs, but all the costs will absolutely go through council or the proper channels to make sure they get approved.
So the first initial, pardon me, Mr. Mayor, but so the next step is to bring the staffing reports here for 2017 consideration.
Correct.
The larger picture is to continue to flush out how
Organizational
that
design
organization and
changes.
that business model will look like.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, I'm happy,
Thank you. And
satisfied.
I just want to remind council that in terms of the Pelham Community Center, there were some of the staffing models, et cetera, that were explained to council, but that was all within the pro forma that was also approved by council. So, there will be, and it's important for the community to know that as well. And I think we had that report, and everybody says, oh my gosh, they're adding all these, well, no, they're not, we're not adding all these people or anything like that. It is within the pro forma, and stay tuned, I think, as the CAO said. So it's important to keep that in mind as well as we work our way through the process.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Mayor, but I think that the larger picture, the PCC is one thing, but as down the road, how the municipality evolves, we need those, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So I understand that perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the director's report? Okay, there being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councillor Papp. The Committee of the Whole received the November 2016 Public Works Report for information. Questions or comments to the director's report? You gave quite an overview there, Madam Director, of various things that staff have been working on and have pride and development in, as well as innovative and safer and more efficient. So thank you very much for including those. Councilor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just 2 comments. The first, just to pick up on what you were indicating. I think that list is a tremendous indicator of kind of the potential that we're beginning to mine in our employees. And what's really great is my experience tells me that while we've looked at all of these issues and employees have looked at those and have developed ways of dealing with them, next year they're going to come up with an equally impressive list, because there's just no end to the things that can be improved ultimately. So I'm really, really pleased with this, and I'm looking forward to an equal report probably next year and the year after, and people will surprise us at what it is that they will tackle and deal with. So thank you for that. And my second comment, Mr. Mayor, is I know I've asked about this so often, so I better ask about it again. Tell us about the progress on the corner of Foss and Church, if you may, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The construction was mainly started last week with some preparation with regards to water table, which is the biggest challenge there. What was discovered in the end was some very poor installation of the original connections into the manhole. So we have lots of pictures. We're still investigating to try to find out how this got approved to begin with. But in terms of the correction, that piece was completed and covered under both inspection from the developer's consultant and their inspector, as well as we had engineering on as well to make sure that they had some inspection time there too. So now it's to go back and recoup and find out what happened, but all of that cost was incurred by the developer, and that was the last piece for that development for Assumption. So we needed that done, that correction done, and I believe it's been paved and good to go.
Yes, thank you.
It's been
to you, Mr.
corrected and
Mayor.
done. It was still closed this morning.
Which, the corner?
The corner is done.
I think it was opened last Friday late, and it's a wonderful change from what we were dealing with before. I mean, those dips were getting deeper and deeper, and vehicles were bottoming out, and axles were being broken, and so what's there now is a lovely, smooth corner. So after having talked about it for a year or longer, I'm pleased to be able to say that we don't have to talk about it anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
So are we.
Councillor Durley, do you want to talk about it further or something else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing about Foss Road, but this is concerning the report. It's very refreshing to see the list of this. I'm really pleased with the format of it, easy to follow, answers a lot of questions. People have been asking different things. You can go right to the point and say, this has been done and this is how it was done, and it's just perfect. That's very efficient and very informative reporting, and congratulations to staff for putting this together and the director.
Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Duncan?
Yes, the one I wanted to comment on, and maybe I have to wait till the director brings forward her report, was the pedestrian crosswalk. And I see that, so the question was, we went to the shop-built flashing light, and I'm wondering why we didn't stay with a standard green and red light that probably, I don't know what the results were. You're gonna, I realize the director's coming back with the results, but I'm just saying that I'm wondering if that flashing light was indeed would become a good indicator of how that would react, how people would react to a light in the middle of the block, as opposed to maybe it should have been the standard green you're going, somebody pushes a button and it's going to be red. I wonder if that wouldn't have given us a clearer indication through you, Mr. Mayor.
Can you help the councillor, Madam Director?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to try. We're still working on some of the analysis of what we've learned. And I did explain earlier, we're waiting also for the region to come forward. So that's active and ongoing. What we did learn, what's coming out from the study, is that there seems to be an expectation by many pedestrians that they would prefer to cross with 100% surety and not taking any ownership for their responsibilities when they step onto the road. And that is the movement that prefers the signal, a traffic signal, to say I'm going to push a button, it's going to turn the light red, then I can know I can cross with surety.
Yeah.
So that option would be a fully signalized intersection if we wanted to make improvements at the existing location. The other mentality is to move towards these more sort of pop-up crosswalks that are still in conformance or in compliance with the regulation or the regulatory requirements, but they do put some of the onus on the pedestrian to cross carefully, to make eye contact, and the lighting or the signal is not what's in question. It's how can you make that crossing visible, the person ready to cross visible, with body language, it's about education, so the pedestrian takes some of that responsibility before they cross. And there really is a divided group here in Pelham that we're seeing. People don't want to own any of it. They want to cross with 100% certainty, and others, and we noticed that was more effective in our mid-block crossing. Even without the lights, if you give the indication, because you're standing near the road and you're waiting and you've made eye contact with the motorist, people stop. With better signage, that would help. With better road painting, that would help. So now it's come down to which human behavior do we want to cater to. Both would be in compliance. So that's kind of where we're at with working through this and working with the region to see what the direction is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't really answer my question, but.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No, I was just wondering, and I could just reiterate, you made that sign, and the person pushed it, but instead of going from a green to a red, it had that flashing row of lights. And I'm not too sure how many mobile traffic cars would relate to that, as opposed to everybody. As soon as you get your license, you're automatically clued in to that red or green. So not meaning to belabor the point, I'm just wondering, not knowing how successful this experiment was, that why you didn't stay with the traffic light signal red and green as opposed to the line of lights.
Mr. Mayor, the norm for the pedestrian crossings
Yes.
is just a light that
Oh.
is distracting. So something different that's
Okay.
not on all the time.
Often yellow, right?
Yellow, amber, flashing,
Oh.
but it's lower,
Okay.
so
Yep.
you're able to see it clearly as you
Okay.
approach. It's
Oh, I
about
didn't
that.
know that. Now you answered it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others to the director's report? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to the results of that study and hearing back from the region. It's been moved by Councilor Ribbiak that the Committee of the Whole received the November 2016 Recreation, Culture, and Wellness Report for information. Questions, comments to the director? There being none,
1 second, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, good.
Just want to pull.
seeing what you marked.
No, good,
Where did we
thank you.
see, Madam Director, the number of participants for Christmas in Pelham? I thought I read it here, but then you indicated earlier today it was in an email. Do you have an estimate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This report was prepared last Tuesday, and the event was Friday. So I did send out the email today, just indicating,
It's not like my golf score. I usually just enter the golf score before the game.
yeah,
but
I
okay.
think you would have caught me on that. The attendance numbers on Friday night were at 3,348, something like that. Yeah, up from 1,800. And we really did find that people came and they stayed, and it was literally pouring. Some people were making comments, oh, just think of it as snow. They all had good attitudes. But after a while, they ended up, many of them left. And from what I understand, the businesses downtown were packed, which is wonderful. And then the rain subsided, and they ended up coming back again because we did have music till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, it seemed like everyone enjoyed themselves.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else for the director's report? Councilor Papp?
Very quickly, through you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Director, MOT is starting the assessment of our pilot project. So what exactly are they looking for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the MTO, yes, requested a update, which March is actually the end of our
Right.
project. We submitted, they just wanted an overview on before and after, our successes, our challenges, anything that we could give them, comments from ridership, success stories.
Video,
Pardon me?
video.
Yes, yes, in which we ended up submitting the video that we have shown you from Rosa from North Pelham as well. And we received a comment right away back that they really appreciated our comments and especially the video, and they will be submitting their report to powers that be. And they indicated that to see what's next. So I quickly emailed her right back and asked, does that mean that you're looking at perhaps something that would help us to continue? And I had one word answer, optimistic. So we will
Wow, that's pretty clear for government.
yeah. We will be communicating further.
Good, thank you. Counselor?
Well, thank you, because I know this has been a very critical service. That's been part of a larger, so without belaboring it, it is also part of our budget considerations. So I think it's important what you've conveyed to the Ministry of Transportation. We're prepared to step up the game if they're prepared to put in some additional resources along with what's happening within the region. Because this expansion of services, congratulations, I like the schedule. It's clear, and I'm going to use it for something else that I'm working with other agencies on doing the same type of transit. But it's important to get some inkling, because we're going to have to make a decision whether we invest in that. And I don't make light of it, because if we say no, and I'm not being pessimistic, then, okay, then we've done a lot of work, and Bob's your uncle, and we'll see you later. We'll see what else we could do. So I'm looking forward to getting, and I know Mr. Mayor, you will too, is lobbying to make sure we want to continue the service. We do not want to see it cease and desist, because I think it'll be major disruption to our constituents. Thank you,
Well,
Mr.
we
Mayor.
did lobby or
Yeah,
make that point at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario
Yeah.
again this year.
no, I
Thank you,
appreciate
Councilor
that.
Pat.
Thank you.
Councilor Dooley, same issue?
Not to this issue, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
anyone else to that issue? Okay, thank you for raising it. Counselor Dooley, go ahead, sir.
Just wanted to highlight from this report the Santa Claus Parade, which will take place on Saturday, starting at 1 o'clock, and downtown Fenwick. It's always a fun day, and just a reminder to folks out there, come on out and attend. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Anyone else to the director's report? And we look forward to seeing members of staff and their families and council there. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councilor Ribbiak. The Committee of the Whole received the November 2016 Clerk's Report for information. Questions, comments regarding the Clerk's Report? Councilor Pop?
Congratulations, Madam Clerk, you married 4 people.
Actually,
You're on a roll. Probably me too.
Didn't get it right the first time.
Very good, thank you. There have been some changes, Madam Clerk, to the, or proposed changes to the municipal act, et cetera, that were announced. You and I were chatting about it recently. Can you let us know, it's not necessarily in your report, but how council might consider some of those changes that might be occurring on the provincial level?
Certainly through you, Mr. Mayor, the changes to the municipal act have only been through first reading, so we will be bringing a report forward when the third and final reading takes place, but there are some changes that will address codes of conduct, changes required there, definitions of meeting. A number of different acts and pieces of legislation are also included, including the Municipal Elections Act, conflict of interest. So we'll summarize it all once it receives royal assent.
Okay, great, look forward to that. Anything further on the clerk's report? Councilor Pat?
Very quickly, you'll be getting a presentation from the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee. We are working together with Welland and Thorold and all the local municipalities to put on a special event in June of 2017. And we have a very special guest speaker coming. which you'll be very pleased to. We won't let the cat out of the bag right now, and it'll be an invitation to all 12 municipalities. And by the way, the Conversation Cafe that we've started here is now taken off in Welland, Thorold, and others are picking up on using this exact type of format to get engaged with the community, so it's been very successful.
That's great.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Councillor. We look forward to that, and congratulations to those that came up with the concept of the Conversation Cafe. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now to the CAO's report. It's been moved by Councillor King. The Committee of the Whole received the November 2016 Chief Administrative Officer's Report for information. Questions or comments? Councillor Kersey first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our CAO. I'm just wondering, the Economic Development Committee that we had going and not going and ongoing and re-going, are we going to reconvene?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know. The strategic plan says that we only have to write something down, so I'll just write it down. I guess to take it up a level, I don't know what's happening at the regional level. The new Commissioner of Economic Development, I haven't seen since he started. I don't know what's going on. None of my committees have been activated again. Not that that's a reason for us not to proceed, but there's that whole piece that seems to be missing. So I was thinking about it the other day, I'm not sure what's going on in that realm. But they had offered a lot of, sort of departmental assistance to us in our plan, and they were participating. So it is something that we'll need to figure out how to deal with for 2017. It is as I said, it is in the plan for 17. So I haven't given it a lot of thought lately, other than that particular component. But hopefully we can, settle in on something in the new year. And actually, again, seriously, was to write down an actual economic development plan. So if we can figure out how we're going to achieve that over the course of 2017, then we'll have met the requirements of the strategic plan.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to the Director of HR, Ms. Gilbert. The councillor's question was about the economic development plan. Can you just fill in council with your recent conversation with some interns at Brock University?
Certainly. We've had the opportunity to meet with one of the professors over at Brock University, and she heads up the internship program for the political science students. And we do have two fourth-year Brock students who are interested in doing an internship here. And then in partnership with our mayor, where we will be putting one, perhaps two of them working on the economic development plan program. If we can find a second suitable program for the other one to work on, we will. But looks like we will have at least one intern working on it.
Very good.
And that'll be January through April.
So that can happen as well.
Right.
Go ahead.
If I can follow up, Councillor Durley and I think yourself, Mr. Mayor, had some fairly lengthy conversations with the new Director of Economic Development at the region at AMO, and talked about his interest in our community and his wanting to be involved and offered lots of support. I'm surprised that he hasn't contacted.
Yeah, well,
he may be up to his neck getting.
I think he is, and
yeah.
So we'll need to follow up with that.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that, Mr. Mayor, that we make a phone
Yep.
call and step off the curb. And
Sure. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to that? I think members of the committee would also be interested in working together on that as well. I have had some contacts with some of the members individually, but not obviously in the group setting. So we'll keep on that. Councillor Papp, on same item or different?
Same item, and I think that you've already explained that, but I think we've recently had some discussions in the chamber, and I've talked to there's a lot of interest going on about, and I know you at the region are familiar about pushing job development, pushing economic opportunities. And I can't see how, with everything we got going on here, we want to be part of that. So it'd be fascinating to talk to the gentleman. I met him briefly. He's very bright, very, very in depth, and to see whether we can do to help us with finishing off at least our plan on paper. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take note and follow up. Anything further for the CEO's report? Was there someone else who signaled? No?
Yes, I can.
Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you.
You're not kidding me, they want a bat survey?
It's been moved by Councillor King that the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for December 19th, 2016, following council. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
So you gotta put up a, I think it's like a recording device, and you gotta try and record them squeak.